সাবমেরিন মাদাগাস্কারের কোস্টে জাপানিজ I-28 সাবমেরিনের সঙ্গে সাক্ষাৎ হয় এবং নেতাজি সেই জাপানিজ সাবমেরিনে যান, সেখান থেকে স্ট্রেট অফ মালাক্কা হয়ে টোকিওয়ে হাজির হন এই এপ্রিল মাসেই। কিন্তু সেইভাবে দেখতে গেলে আমাদের এপ্রিল মাসে এমন প্রচুর ঘটনা নিয়ে আলোচনা করতে হবে, হয়তো এরকম একটা ফোরাম যেখানে আমরা ঘন্টাখানেকের মধ্যে নেতাজির জীবনের 9th মাইলস্টোন নিয়ে ডিসকাস করার চেষ্টা করি, হয়তো সমস্ত কিছু সম্ভব হবে না। তাই আজকে এই বিশেষ দিনে 14ই এপ্রিলের পর সেই মৈরাং দিবস, যে মৈরাং দিবসে আইএনএর প্রথম পতাকা উত্তোলন হয় এই ভারতের মাটিতে, আমরা এমন একজন বিশিষ্ট জনকে পেয়েছি যার সঙ্গে আমরা আগামী ঘন্টাখানেক কাটাবো, এবং আমার সঙ্গে আজ থাকবেন আর কেউ নন, আপনাদের পরিচিত এবং সবার প্রিয় ডক্টর অনিতা পাফ। আমি ওনাকে প্রথমে স্বাগত জানাবো আমাদের এই অনুষ্ঠানে, এবং তারপর আমরা আমাদের আজকের অতিথিকে নিয়ে আসবো। I am sorry, there is a problem with the I have to be the yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can talk, but I cannot start my video.
Okay, I think you need a notification to start a video. I will ask my host to ask you to give that. Indranil, if you can enable the video, please. So while we wait to have your video on, which my friend Indranil will enable for you, what I was trying to talk about is that one part of that submarine journey that you talked about in the month of February kind of comes to a logical point here with that transfer. But I think we have a much bigger subject to discuss with respect to the INA and the success of INA, which if you can just set the context for the audience here and the benefit of everyone.
Those of you who were present 2 months ago in our meeting will recall, as Mr. Giri said, that we talked about the departure of the submarine. And I don't know whether you can hear me right now. I cannot see anything at all.
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, very good. Then I will continue. In any case, so we talked about the departure of the submarine by which Nitaji went from Germany to Southeast Asia. And eventually, of course, he revived the INA there, which had almost come to an end. For a variety of reasons. And when he returned to Asia and came to the Far East for the first time, so to say, he took charge of the INA and built up the membership and started an offensive via Burma, going north, trying to get to India on land route with the Indian National Army. And today we want to commemorate the 14th of this month, 1944, when the INA came to Indian territory and the Indian flag was hoisted on Indian territory. This is the day we are commemorating, and we have a very special guest today, apart from Shoaib Giri and myself as the usual participants in this dialogue, but we have an eyewitness almost of these days, that is Mrs. Asha Bharati Sahai Chaudhary, who was a member of the Indian National Army, that is the Rani of Jhansi Regiment, as a young officer at that time. She was so young that she did not participate in the offensive on Indian territory, but joined the Indian National Army shortly thereafter. But I think we should certainly avail ourselves. I hope you can.
Yes, now we can see you.
Yeah, well, I can't, but never mind. Anyway, so we'll have the very, very special guest who can also give us some first-hand information about those times, even though not of the campaign to the Indian territory itself. So this is what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, I get a message from people that they can't hear us. Is that the case, Mr. Chaudhary? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. My mother cannot hear you because of other reasons.
Okay.
But okay, doesn't matter. I will relay. But what about the others? Check the others.
Yeah, I think if you can hear us, then the system connection must be okay.
I somehow cannot join the meeting, seemingly. I will try to log in again, but I might get thrown out altogether. I'm not sure.
But we can see.
Now I'm back.
Yeah, we can see you very well, except that the camera can be a bit lower so that we can see your full face.
Yeah, okay.
And we can
hear you. Good.
Because I couldn't see myself at all so far.
Yes. Thank you, Roop Banerjee. Thank you, Nilay Brahmachari. Thank you. I get your message that you can see us and hear us. Okay, good. So thank you for this very nice introduction. And generally in these sessions, it is my privilege that happens as your host to not only introduce Dr. Anita Puff, but also introduce the special guest. And here we have a very special mother-son duo who has joined us, as Dr. Puff mentioned, especially in the context of INA's exploits in the month of April, when it was perhaps an unbelievable achievement for our army to invade its motherland with outside help at a time when independence struggle was going on. To think that the INA crossed the Indian border and established its flag, hoisted its flag, and to have someone who belonged to that army, Lieutenant Bharti Chaudhary, who is also having her parents' pen name, Asha. I was asking that how come she has so many names. So we heard that Asha was the pen name. And it is always my privilege to introduce to the audience such eminent personalities. And today it is my distinct pleasure to welcome on board Dr. Srimati Bharti Chaudhary, and in the context of INA, Lieutenant Bharti Chaudhary Asha, the living legend, who is perhaps one of those rare personalities in the world today who has met Nitaji. And this is the crux of today's session, where we will try to see and hear about Nitaji through her narrative. Not to forget that she is accompanied by her very able son, Mr. Sanjay Chaudhary, who himself is an accomplished person, and he is also the grandson of Mr. Anand Mohan Sahai, Bharti Devi's father, who was a illustrious freedom fighter by his own rights before we gained independence. He ran the freedom struggle from overseas, especially in Japan. He was a cabinet minister in the provincial government established by Nitaji in August 1943. And after independence, he has also played a number of diplomatic roles, especially ambassadors to the Caribbean as well as Thailand, etc. So the grandson of Mr. Anandamohan Sahai and the son of Srimati Bharti Devi, Mr. Sanjay Chaudhary is also there. He is the past Secretary General of the Netaji Subhas INA Trust. So formally, welcome to both of you. Pranam Bharti Devi and Namaskar Mr. Chaudhary.
Thank you. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Great to see you. And I have a lot of questions for your mother, and I hope that it is not going to be a bit overbearing for her, for the audience. She is 93 plus, yet going strong and raring to go to talk about that part of the history which perhaps none of us in this audience might have witnessed firsthand. And therefore, I know that you will also have many questions, but I will keep it very simple. If you can let us know when and where were you born and how was your early days of childhood?
I was born in Japan when my father and mother went to Japan. After my parents married, they went to Japan and I was born there in Kobe.
Are you getting feedback?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just shut off one of them. Okay,
no, it's okay. Please continue. Please continue.
Okay.
Now?
Please continue. We
Okay,
can
carry on.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
बताइए.
Chaliye. So Japan mein, so you were born in, how come you were born in Japan?
Yes. I was, because my father and mother after marriage went to Japan. First, my father went to Japan and he started independence work there in Kobe. And then in Kobe, Rashbihari Bose also were there. Rashbihari Bose was active in Tokyo, and my father was started. All the Indians were, he has instigated those Indians in Japan to fight for independence, start independence work. So he was there. Then after 5 years, he went back to Calcutta. And then he married my mother, Sati Sahai. And then both of them went to Kobe and started.
Which year, what was it? Can you tell us which year was it? Kaunsa saal?
Which years? Year.
Which year? It was in 19. My father went to Japan in 1922 and went back to Calcutta after 5 years. And in those days, he was teaching English to the Japanese YMCA in Japanese boys, and then he went back to and then he married my mother at 1926, and then both of them went to Japan.
I have heard that
I was born.
I have heard your mother was connected to Calcutta.
She was niece of Mr. C.R. Das, Deshbandhu Das and Basanti Devi, and then he knew, both of them knew each other. My parents, and Sati Sahai and Anand Mohan Sahai, came to know each other in Deshbandhu Das's house. And then after some time, they decided to marry and go to Japan.
And that is how you were born in Japan.
Pardon? Yeah?
That is how you were born in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. 1928 I was born. 1926, 7 they went to Japan.
Tell us about your early life in Japan, your childhood. What did you see your parents?
Yeah.
Where did you stay in Japan?
Go to Japan.
Okay.
How do you tell me? How? My parents, because my mother was always with Das's family, he used to go there and live there. And my father also was there in Deshbandhu's with Nitaji, and Nitaji Subhash Bose. Subhash Bose was there. So both of them were very good friends. And of course, Ma was there. And so all of them used to do something for independence work. So they knew each other. And then my father decided to marry. He went to Japan telling her that I'll come back and then I'll marry you. So, and my mother waited for him for 5 years, and then both of them married and went to Japan.
Okay. So what happens after Netaji arrives in Japan? As we all know that Netaji arrived in Japan.
Oh,
after
that's
the
right.
submarine.
Yeah. In 1940, before that also, my mother used to go to Calcutta and meet Nitaji Subhash Bose, and he used to tell, she told Netaji that Subhash, you have to come to Japan, and we need a strong leader in Japan to achieve independence for India. We can work there very well. So you have to come to Japan. He said, yes, I shall. And secretly, he was in prison also. He came out, and then from there, and secretly, he tried arranged to go to Japan and
And what about your life, early life in Japan?
Where did you study in Japan? What did you study? Did you go to Japanese school in Japan?
After my parents were in Japan, in Kobe, and I was born there only. My sister and brothers, all of us we were born there. And we went to Japanese school in Kobe, one primary school, Ozaki Shogako. I passed there, and then we all shifted to Tokyo. So in Tokyo, I joined college or Showa University, Women's University. I passed there. So I passed my BA from there. But before passing, Netaji came in 1943, and I decided to. And my mother said that you can take my Asha to war, and I decided to go for war. And when Netaji went to Singapore, he called me also. So I went to Singapore, and first to Bangkok and then to Singapore. In Bangkok, I got trained and Rani Jhansi Regiment, and I became sub-lieutenant and then lieutenant, like that.
Yeah. So Anita madam is perhaps always very curious to hear about your first meeting with her father. So can you describe your first meeting with Nitaji?
Your first meeting with Nitaji in the hotel in Japan.
When in 1943, we came to know, it was all secret, but however, we came to know that Nitaji is in Tokyo and in Imperial Hotel. So myself, my mother, and my two sisters and brother, and my uncle Satyadev Sahai, we all went to Tokyo Imperial Hotel and waited at the lobby. Then Nitaji with Major Hassan, his private secretary, they came down from upstairs, and we just watched him. We were, very much. Then we stand, and I was about. My mother told me to touch his feet. Pranam karo. Then, but as soon as we bow down, Nitaji was so angry. He said, we are not to bow down anymore. For 100 years, we just bow our head as a slave. Now you just stand up and say Jai Hind. So we all stood straight and said Jai Hind to Nitaji. And then I told that I want to go with you to war. Take me also. My mother also said, yes, she looks very slim and fragile, but she is very strong in mind. You must take her and join the women's army. So Netaji just laughed and said, okay, let me go first to Singapore and then I'll call you. So after that, 44, I was called by Netaji. I went and joined Rani Jhansi Regiment. 6 months training, emergency training.
So, have you spoken in Bangla also with Netaji? আপনি কি বাংলায় কথা বলেছেন?
No, only once, because Netaji always used to speak in Hindi. We also used to speak in Hindi. With my mother, of course, I used to speak in Bengali. But once only I talked with Netaji in Bengali. That was after the war, when Netaji was to go away and not to come back again. He said, he in Bengali, we all went to meet him, and Netaji in Bengali, only once, Bengali asked me, Bhoy korbe na to, you are not scared, no? So I was a bit angry. So I just stood up and said, Ami bhoy kori na. That was the only time I talked in Bengali. Otherwise, always in Hindustani.
Wonderful.
Then she went away. Then Netaji went away, never to come back.
But what did he say after that?
Huh?
After you said, Ami bhoy kori na, what did he say?
Whom?
Netaji kya bole? Ki tumi shotir mein.
What?
He said, oh, tumi to shotir mein. Okay, so we'll let that be. We'll let that be.
I think my questions will not end, but I will let Anita ji also jump into this conversation, because otherwise I will be tempted to talk on and on.
क्या बोले? What? Yes.
Question कर रही हैं.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to
So
unmute
nice
me.
to
Yeah,
see you. My
Thank you.
Nitaji
Okay, fine.
daughter. You
Yeah.
are. Okay.
I think it is most
Okay.
exciting that
पूछने दीजिए.
Asha Sahay Chaudhary can tell us about these things firsthand. And I think it's hard for us to imagine what life was like
Yes,
at
Anita,
that
please go
time,
ahead and ask.
when as a young 17-year-old, she became a soldier, which was quite an outstanding thing in general, because I think, to my knowledge, the Rani of Jhansi regiment was just about one of the first women's regiments, if you leave out the Amazons in ancient Greek mythology. And it is quite amazing what these young women went through at the time, and not, of course, only the young women, but also the soldiers, the male soldiers, had a very strenuous and very difficult time attacking the British Indian Empire, coming in from the northeastern front. It was of course envisaged in a different way than what eventually happened. Those of you who read about the attack of the INA on British India probably know that the monsoon started early during that year, and while it was possible for the INA to enter India and hoist the flag in India, as we mentioned before. And there were fights going on in near Kohima and Imphal. But the early monsoon brought an end to this attack. Now, we can only speculate what might have been if the monsoon had come later and the attack had been carried further into India. I wonder sometimes whether, as far as the civilian population was concerned, it might have been more difficult, because if there had been an ongoing fight, sort of almost kilometer by kilometer, carried into first the northeast provinces, then into Bengal. Of course, the INA and Nitaji envisaged that the attack on India would bring about an uprising of the Indian population in general. And of course, in order to make this a military success, it would have had to be an ongoing uprising throughout the country. But on the other hand, we don't know whether communication at that time was sufficient that it would really have been a successful uprising. After all, the supply of the Indian National Army came from the Japanese side, and Japan by that time was in very difficult situation themselves as far as their armament, their planes, and so on were concerned. So I don't know whether the Japanese supplies would have been sufficient to have a successful military attack further into India, with all the logistics problems that would have been involved. On the other hand, I don't know how the supply of an uprising movement of the civilian population, not only by non-violent means, but by armed means, would have been carried out. Now, this is, of course, all speculation. We know that in military terms, hoisting the flag, of course, was a very symbolically important achievement for the Indian army attacking from the southeast. But on the other hand, in military terms, since they were eventually beaten back and had to retreat, it was not a success. But in political terms, we all know what happened later on, but we'll deal with that during another month of this year. It eventually led to the Red Fort trials, which provided new impetus to the independence movement at the time. So it is a strange combination of factors that you can have, that you can fail in military terms, but yet be successful in political terms eventually. But the hoisting of the flag and the taking charge of part of Indian soil for free India, of course, was a highly important and very symbolic meeting. On the other hand, since eventually the army had to retreat, they all had to face a very difficult time. And Nitaji was offered by the Japanese to be flown out of that area. And then he wanted to get an airlifting, at least for the Rani of Jhansi soldiers of the army. And the Japanese said they didn't have the capacity, they couldn't do that. So eventually he said, okay, then if you can't do that, I will not be flown out either. And he went on the retreat on foot with the Indian National Army and specifically with the Rani of Jhansi regiment. And I think this is what leadership is all about, that the leader does not sort of take off and take the easy way out, but sticks it out with his soldiers and stays with them. And I think this form of leadership is something which was very important for India at the time in general, to see the commitment of the forefront leaders throughout India. And of course, we can only say that we can hope that the whole leadership today takes this as an example, and of course in different forms of meeting problems in India today, that they take the leadership and not the easy way out, but they stick with their people, and they also face the problems with their people. Of course, in modern times, it's a different situation, but the challenges remain, and we can only hope that India as a whole, the people and also, of course, the leadership will be up to the challenges of today, be it the pandemic or be it the economic difficulties, unemployment, poverty, and that India will get through the present day problems too, also with the correct leadership and with committed people like the INA at that time were. And I can only repeat what I've said I think at a different meeting here already, that it always distressed me very much that the INA soldiers were not given their due for a long time and were not even recognized as freedom fighters for a long time. Once India became free, at least that was changed later on in the 70s. But these men and women have really committed a great deal of their efforts, they risked their lives for India, certainly no less than other freedom fighters in India itself did. You're muted, Shaibat.
I was actually looking into a map on 14th of April to see where did the INA soldier marched from, because they were mostly on foot. So from Bangkok to that border of Burma and India in Kohima and Manila, halfway on foot and halfway on trucks, etc. in that crossing of the Irrawaddy River, it was also distressful and painful, and yet they were doing it. Yeah. So I think what perhaps we need to do as citizens who like these history to be preserved and the legacy to be known. How many of us, when we go to India, for example, visit that INA museum in Imphal, and how many of us have attempted also to petition with the powers to be to make that INA memorial a much more larger and grander scale than it can be. Because I was actually looking for someone, a curator of that INA museum, to join us if possible today. And can you believe it? I couldn't find that person. I did find a person who takes a lot of interest in the Battle of Imphal and Battle of Kohima tours, because he is a history buff. He has written books. But when I wanted him on the show, he said, "I am not the curator of the museum." So the way that history is preserved here in Europe, perhaps we need to be much more proud of ourselves back home and preserve these pieces of legacy. Yes, it is preserved, but more and more people, it needs to be promoted more, for more and more people to come and see and visit those places, especially the ones like these, which are milestones in India's history. I think while we are here, Bharti Devi and Sanjay ji are facing some technical issues on the internet.
No more.
Are you back?
Shaibal, the technical issue has been sorted out, so I think you can hear us.
Yes.
But before we go forward, you spoke about a very important thing of the memorial as a symbol of.
Are you able to switch on your video?
To its very heroic history of the INA, and also as a flame for going forward. But let me tell you, we have with us today Brigadier Chikara, who is the chairman of the INA Trust, and of which Anita is the chairperson. And so he's here, and then I said that, the trust has tried to do some work on that front, mostly with moving the powers that be, and we are hopeful that something good will come out of it. Of course, the COVID has put put some cold water on our efforts, but I think as soon as this crisis is over, which I know it will, we will get back into doing some work on that.
Unmute the video. Thank you. So, if Brigadier Chikara is there, would you like to tell us a few things about those initiatives? Because I think in today's context, before we go back to Bharti Devi's exploits as an INA soldier, because I still have some questions for her, I'll be happy to hear a couple of sentences from Brigadier Chikara. Brigadier Chikara.
Yeah.
I think he's on mute. Maybe he'll come back to us. He's hooked on, I know, because I spoke to him just before the call.
Fine, no problem. So if I can come back to your mother with my next
program forward.
Yeah, if I can come back to your mother with my next set of curiosities, if I may say. Yeah, these are not questions actually. These are mostly curiosity. So let me ask you, as a INA soldier, what kind of weapons did you use?
I had a rifle. Sometimes I have to take two, and always with rifle and one pistol also, and anti-aircraft gun. I learned how to shoot airplane by aircraft. And after war also, I had a rifle and pistol, but with the soldiers of British Indian Army came and took all my rifle and pistol and went away. Because they were Britishers. So now they say, what you will do with a rifle and pistol? Now you are defeated. And we were very angry. I said that we are not defeated. I don't need rifle. I don't need pistol. But I can fight with my hand. And you can take away everything and go get away from it. You are Pittu of British Army. Pittu means
They were kind of Pittu means, because these were Indian soldiers that she was talking to, Indian soldiers of the British Army.
And they came. Yeah, we were arrested, of course, and we were in prison, but it was not a prison, it was a camp. I was home arrested like that, camp arrested. And the British Army officer came and said, you people are not to get out of this place, and you are not to wear uniform. And we said loudly, we shall wear uniform. Azadin INS, I will never leave this uniform. And we shall go out, and you people can't stop us like that. We were not afraid of anything. We were not afraid.
Do you remember your other comrades in the Rani Jhansi regiment? Any names from your regiment?
Your comrades from Rani Jhansi, your colleagues in Rani Jhansi regiment, so people.
Yeah. Yes, we had two groups in Rani Jhansi regiment. One fighting squad and one nursing squad. I have chosen the fighting squad. And 6 months emergency training we had. And we used to learn everything from cycling to anti-air gun and how to shoot the enemy, everything. I didn't have the chance to shoot a Britisher, but in a way it is good. I didn't kill anybody.
Wonderful. Okay.
But what about your friends in Rani Jhansi regiment?
Huh?
Your friends, they were other.
Yeah.
What about?
Yeah.
And did anyone die?
We used to march together. One of my friends, Jhansi Rani regiment, Lieutenant Janki. We were on way to Burma, and in a forest we took a rest for a while. Then we all hid under the truck, but that my friend Anjali, she delayed, and one bullet splinter hit her head, and he fell down and died. But we didn't feel anything, because for we are ready to fight for fight and die for our country. So if one person, my friend died, I don't mind. It's good. You died for your country. It was like that.
So you were never afraid.
Huh?
You were never afraid. You were not scared.
You were not afraid. डर नहीं लगा था. डर.
क्या बोले?
बोले you were never afraid.
हाँ?
डर नहीं लगा था. डर डर.
हाँ.
Speak loudly, Shabal.
না, आपको আপনার ভয় লাগেনি, আপনার কখনো ভয় লাগেনি?
Boy, I didn't know any boy. Even today, I don't know what is boy means. Fear is something different.
So
I should say, yeah.
So what happened after the Japanese surrendered? Because I have heard that you have met Netaji thrice, and the last meeting was before he took that flight from Bangkok, correct?
Yeah. Netaji came to Bangkok for the last time, and we were in camp and saw that Netaji coming down from a car, and we ran down and met her and saluted him. Then Netaji said that be brave. He in Bengali he said, "Bhoy korbe na to, you won't be scared." I said, we are not person to be scared of anything. And Netaji was happy and he went away. That was the last I met. Sometimes I think that I should have gone in his car with him, so that when he was in accident or something like that, I could be there with him. Sometimes I feel like.
So after the war, what happened and how did you come back to India?
Yeah. When Netaji last came, then he told all the Rani Jhansi regiment went home in Burma or Bangkok or Singapore. But my home, my house was, my mother was in Tokyo, so I couldn't go to Tokyo. So Netaji told one Pandit Raghunath Sharma, he was the president of Indian Independence League in Bangkok. So Netaji told him to keep Asha with you, me, with you, with your family till her parents come and take you back. So I stayed with Pandit Raghunath Sharma's family for 8 months. Then Papa was in prison, and somehow Netaji, Nehruji went to Singapore. Otherwise, these INA officers, ministers, they were all to be executed. But Nehruji saved them all. My father also was saved, and then they were released from the prison, and he stayed with one Mitra's family, and called me and come to Singapore. So I went to Singapore by plane. And there was English young men standing, sitting in the plane, and they offered me to sit. I was very angry to see this Angrez log ko dekh ke. I couldn't see them, so I just said no, and I state stand up like that.
From what happened after that? You reached Singapore.
What?
After reaching Singapore and you met your father.
Pardon?
When you met your father.
Oh, I met from Bangkok after 8 months stay in Pandit Jagannath Sharma's house. I went to Singapore, and there in the airport, my father was there waiting for me. So after long, we never knew that we shall meet again because it was wartime. Anything may happen, but then
Sanjay ji, if you can ask her one question that has come, which I am also very curious to know. Is she in touch with any fellow soldier from the same regiment now? Are you in touch?
No, she has not been in touch. She has not been in touch. You know, most of the soldiers from the INA, most from the Rani Jhansi regiment were all came from the Southeast Asian countries. Most of them, okay? There were very few Indians as such. They were Indians, but they were from Rangoon. They were from all these Southeast Asian countries. So they went back home. So there were very few Indians from India as such. Okay, there were some like Rama Mehta who lives in Bombay, and her mother and her two sisters, they all joined the INA together, but they were there at that time. They came back to India later on. But no, she has not been in touch with any Rani Jhansi regiment people. Okay. Earlier, she was in touch with all the people because of her father. So with whether it was Shahnawaz or it was Colonel Mehboob and various other people. But they were not from the Rani Jhansi regiment, because Rani Jhansi regiment, after it was disbanded, of course, with Lakshmi Swami Lakshmi Bai, Lakshmi Swaminathan, she met a few times, definitely.
Okay.
I had also, I have taken her there and I had the chance of meeting her. Yeah.
And
Brigadier Chikara is on the line. You can maybe call him in.
Yeah. Indranil, if you can unmute Brigadier Chikara, please. Brigadier Chikara, if you can see us. And,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you switch on your video, please?
Yeah, I can see him.
Yeah, the video is also on, and now I'm unmuted also.
Okay. Yes, Brigadier Chikara, we perhaps was waiting.
Nitaji, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
How
are you doing?
You were in command and you were giving commands rather than taking them.
No. We are all equal. We are.
But it's very good that you took this command. We are very happy to have you here.
Okay. A couple of points I would like to add to this whole discussion. One thing, for example, Anita ji said that it's a matter of speculation as to what would have happened if they had gone beyond Kohima. If the INA had gone beyond Kohima, they would have done wonders. And the basic reason is that while Kohima was fully starved, there were no logistics there, either coming from the Japanese side or coming from the British side for that matter. Kohima was a garrison which was in bad way. But Dimapur, there was a 50-kilometer long logistic base supplying China. And therefore, if the INA had then decided, or the Japanese had allowed them to go just a few kilometers away from Kohima to Dimapur, they would have got hold of this entire logistic base, and they would have had no problem for themselves for the next couple of years. But the question really remains as to what would have happened to the logistics and organization of the other people in India who were supposed to have, revolted against the British at that time. That is an unanswered question. And I don't think I'm in a position to speculate any better than anybody else. So that was one issue I wanted to do. The second issue is that while the Japanese and the INA forces were advancing from the border of Burma, India-Burma border, to Kohima or Imphal, the Nagas of these two states, which are earlier part of Assam only, they came in very, very useful and they came very helpful. All the logistics that they missed, the food, the guidance, the shelter, they were provided by the Nagas. It is very unfortunate that India never recognized the role that the Naga people played in this whole game. The Naga people, including their very famous Naga rebel, Fizo personally acted as a guide to the forces and brought them all the way up to the outskirts of Kohima. Number two, the British, when they came to know that the Nagas were helping the INA and the Japanese soldiers, took very severe reprisals against them. Those reprisals meant that thousands of people, Naga people, died, and hundreds of Naga villages were completely burnt out. So these are also facts of history which one needs to note. There is a whole lot of literature lying in the district headquarters of Manipur now and Nagaland now. The gazetteers, the district gazetteers have so much knowledge, so much to in store as records that they need to be all brought out. Unfortunately, in India, we haven't been able to launch even a research project or a fellowship in that area. We've been trying very hard with the government of India to organize something of that nature. But then unfortunate that ever since this government came, our hopes, which went sky high at one stage, are now back to the ground level. Just now I was trying to speak to the Minister of Culture in Delhi and wanted him to do something about it. The other point I want to add is that Kohima doesn't have a memorial. In Kohima, there are people of the British Indian Army who died, the people of the Japanese Army who died, and people of the INA who laid down their lives. The Britishers have made a beautiful war memorial in Kohima. Go back home and tell them of us that for their tomorrow we give our today. But the Japanese, they dug out all the bones, did DNA sampling, and took their bones away for being honored in Japan. There's not a word or not a thing to be done that has been said or done about the Indian war heroes who laid down their lives. These are big issues of Indian consciousness. Our leadership is busy with politicking. Our leadership is busy with ruling for, I don't know, for whose benefit, but certainly not the benefit of history. So these are the few points I wanted to make, except that Bharti ji, how are you? How are you? Long time I have not met you.
It is nice to see you here.
Tell Sanjay to bring you to Gurgaon once again.
Sir, there is this other Britisher who is lurking in the, it's called COVID. So
Acha.
as soon as the impact of this lowers, and Delhi, I am told, is now quite bad. So I think
I
you
have
must
sent
also
my
take care.
samples for
You must
testing
take
as
care.
of day before yesterday, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping that my own result will come tomorrow. Every
I'm
chance
sure
that it will be positive.
I'm sure it will be good, but please do take care. But I wanted to add something, Shaibal, to what Brigadier Chikara has just said. You know, it is almost a single-handed battle that Brigadier Chikara has been waging to bring the INA to the forefront, and to create this memorial in Kohima and Moirang, and we have also tried to set up a school there for all these Naga children who are there, which will be actually a memorial to Nitaji. He has also forwarded and discussed the idea of having schools in India, which I am told is soon to be a reality, we were given that assurance by the Vice President of India, and I'm sure Brigadier Chikara is very much at it. So that is a work in progress, and I think we need to thank Brigadier Chikara for his interest. I was happy to be associated with the trust for a couple of years when I was in Delhi. Unfortunately, I had to come back to Patna, but I'm still very committed to that. And as soon as COVID gives over, I'm sure I'll be able to work with Brigadier Chikara and do something about this whole Northeast presence of ours, because it's an insult actually to our Indian consciousness and our Indian pride that we forget our heroes. But anyway, we will. I think something will happen, and I'm sure there are enough committed people. So, Shaibal, I'm sorry for this interjection. Please carry on.
No, I think thank you both,
Anitaji,
Brigadier Chikara and Sanjay ji.
Anitaji and Saibal, can I say a word?
Yeah, sure.
Just for the information of both of you for the time being, we have been granted exemption under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, one of the few organizations in the country whom the government has considered for this. And we are now going to launch a worldwide campaign to collect donations and collect funds for building this memorial and the school in Kohima. To the extent that you may be able to help by word of mouth or by whatever other means, I'd be glad if you do that. We'll be coming back with this campaign maybe within the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely, Brigadier Chikara. I think these initiatives do require collective effort, and direct, indirect. You are putting your sweat. We can put our bit, and I will be happy to offer support both on a personal basis as well as by mobilizing collective consciousness. That is more important, because I think you made a very important point today. I was mentioning about the condition of the memorial in Moirang and how I could not reach the curator of the museum, but you went one step ahead. You said that a memorial of that type doesn't exist in Kohima, where it should be. And living in Europe, when we see that how history is preserved in every nook and corner of Europe and every country, I think it is a shame on us that we have not been able to keep the memories of our heroes alive. So, Brigadier Chikara, we can take this up offline on a personal basis. The amount of work we can do, or mobilize other organizations, even through the local missions. I think the local missions, the consulate generals have a role to play. And from my side, I can also say that we can make this Nitaji initiative get its publicity as we run these dialogues with Anitaji every month. Yeah, this is for a global audience. So we can try and see how much we can help you in raising and securing those funding.
Let's see. And thank you very much for the offer. But one thing I which I definitely want, Anita ji, is you to be in support. For a number of years now, you've been rather quiet. No, honestly, you know what I'm trying to do? One of the projects which we have in hand right now is to correct the narrative on Nitaji. The national narrative that has been running about Nitaji for the last 70 years is very highly flawed, and it is episodic. You know, people talk of episodes, but people don't talk about his personality. People don't talk about his vision. What we are trying to do is to make a small 1 hour film, 60 to 70 minutes film, for which you got the famous Madhur Bhandarkar. He's offered to direct that film. And we are getting in touch with the Netflix and Hotstar, etc., to help us, get this made. They do make such take up such projects. And Anitaji's help I need. Her word and her presence or her signatures alongside mine would go a long way in helping this particular project at least. Have you got me, Anitaji?
I will be happy to help you in these efforts, also in the Kohima monument efforts. I think this is a very worthy thing, also particularly as a project during the 125th anniversary of Nitaji, because for him this was, of course, a very important stepping stone for India's independence. And you're quite right. I think there should be an adequate monument, and we should remember those heroes, not only the British Indian soldiers, but also the Indian National Army and the Japanese soldiers. But for some reason or the other, some parts of India have remembered Netaji very much indeed, and it is always gratifying to see how even simple people remember him after all these years. But on the other hand, there are some others who sort of, let's say, were not terribly forthcoming in giving him and the INA their due.
I think I'm so glad to say that, just a minute, excuse me, the minister is on the line. Hello? Yes,
Good
please.
for us. The minister is on the line.
I'm all
Yeah.
right.
So I'm conscious about the time, Sanjay ji, that we have crossed the hour mark, and I think we should not overstretch your
I just
mother's.
want to say one more thing.
Yeah,
I
your
just want to
mother's.
say, Anita ji, that every village in the country
Sanjay, I'm
we
talking
have
to
a
Lansing Patel.
locally made statue
I'll sign off for the moment.
of Netaji.
And Anitaji, I'll call you.
He is the
Hello.
most lasting, most inspiring icon still in India. So I think, and he's more than any others. And I would say even and more growing as we go forward, when other leaders fall by the wayside because of various reasons, but his image remains shining and as a beacon for making India great. So I just wanted to say that to you. And Shaibal, please carry on. I'm sorry I keep interjecting, but
No. I am more worried about your mother because we have already stretched her over an hour. She must be feeling tired. আমি তাই আমি আপনার সঙ্গে দুটো বাংলায় কথা বলতে চাই।
নিশ্চয়ই।
একটু আমাদের নেতাজির একটা গান শুনিয়ে আপনি শেষ করুন আজকের অনুষ্ঠানটা। একটা গান শোনাতে পারেন নেতাজির সেই সময়কার গান?
এখন
পারবেন? মনে আছে?
পারবো। কোন গানটা? আইএনের গান না?
হ্যাঁ, আইএনের গানটা।
আইএনের গান শোনাবো?
নিশ্চয়ই।
বাড়ায় যা, এই গানটা শোন।
yes.
আমার গলা কিন্তু অত ভালো না, গাচ্ছি। I have to sing an INA song.
She knows.
कदम कदम बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा। कदम कदम बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा। खुशी के गीत गाए जा, गाए जा। ये जिंदगी है कौम की, तो कौम पे लुटाए जा, कौम पे लुटाए जा। कदम कदम बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा। तू शेर हिंद आगे बढ़, मरने से फिर भी तू न डर। तू शेर हिंद आगे बढ़, मरने से फिर भी तू न डर। उड़ा के दुश्मनों के सर जो से वतन बढ़ाए जा। जिंदगी है कौम की, तो कौम पे लुटाए जा, कौम पे लुटाए जा। कदम कदम बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा, बढ़ाए जा। चलो चलो जल्दी पुकार के, कौमी निशान संभाल के। ये लाल किले पे गाड़ के लड़ाए जा, लड़ाए जा। ये जिंदगी है कौम की, तो कौम पे लुटाए जा, पे लुटाए जा। कदम कदम बढ़ाए जा।
You are an inspiration.
To sing this song while marching to Burma.
It is an inspiration to all of us that even at this age you remember the song and you could sing it fully. Sanjay ji, my heartfelt gratitude to you for letting us talk to your mother, and Bharti ji, our pranam to you. May you have a healthy life and a long life so that we can meet you again and again, especially on occasions like these, when remembering and preserving the legacy of Netaji is all so very important.
And thank you giving me this honor to talk about Netaji.
The honor is ours to hear you. So, Anitaji, anything from your side as closing comments?
And it's so nice to see you, Anitaji. I like to see you again and again. Let's see when I meet you again.
I certainly hope so, and also in person. My friends, I think this was a great event for all of us to have Asha De present and tell us about her experience, and to have Brigadier Chikara here, and I think make many important suggestions, also particularly with regard to the area of Manipur. And I certainly thank all of you to take interest and be present here today. And I can only invite all of you to remember your country, to remember the dedicated leadership, and wherever you may be, whether in India or anywhere else in the world, I hope that we all can, you can, I can contribute something to India and something to humanity. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you, Bharti ji, Anita madam, Sanjay ji, and everyone else who joined us, the global audience, not only on this Zoom conference, but also on YouTube and our Facebook channels. I just wanted to let you know that the next edition of the Anita Dialogues with me is going to be next month in the on 16th of May, where we will come back to you with another set of topics on the life and legacy of Netaji, as we continue the Anita Dialogues every month through this 125th birth anniversary year of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So signing off from here in Germany and for the rest of the world. Thank you. Have a nice weekend, and till we meet each other again next month.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
I always say Jai Hind.
Thank you. Yes.
Otherwise, you get fired again.
हो गया कौन है हो गया ना